So we got one content creator claiming that the DiJonai Carrington situation was an accident, but he's supposed to be a Caitlin Clark.
The notorious eye. Everyone is talking about this Pook event. Wasn't what some people claimed, while others. According to DiJonai Carrington, it was. Unintentionally using a professional body language. A specialist has examined the video frame by panel displaying unsettling trends of intentional manipulation of facial expressions, of contentment, and obvious lies in interviews after the game.
A couple of days ago that went down with people claiming that Marina Marbury and DiJonai Carrington was making fun of Caitlin Clark getting poked in the eye, which that's a whole nother video. We ain't finna dive into that story. But something that really caught my eye was that it's always this one content creator. Y'all should know who he is. He's flip-flop all the time. He's real flip-flop. He does whatever he got to do to stay in the algorithm, say what he got to say according to the algorithm. Now, I can't knock his hustle. If that's how he want to operate on his channel, so be it. But people send me these clips, and you know what I'm saying? I got to react to it. So when I seen what he said, I'm like, there's no way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel again. Today, we are dissecting one of the most contentious incidents in recent. The event in WNBA history where DiJonai. It seemed as though Carrington prodded Caitlin. During a game, Clark got hit in the eye. This circumstance has generated contentious discussions throughout social media, with followers split on whether it was unintentional or deliberate. However, after examining the data, I believe you'll concur that something odd occurred on that court.
After taking a shot following the pass to Boston. In pain after she caught that fingertip in the eye or right.
You've most likely already seen the basic footage. However, what you may not have noticed is the thorough examination from a professional specialist in body language who has investigated this incident frame by frame, and what they discovered is unquestionably. Surprisingly, this isn't merely conjecture this is a scientific breakdown of fan bias by a person skilled in spotting dishonesty and interpret nonverbal clues, which the majority of us would fail to notice. That leg in every situation. You can see that she misses the ball. Her hand is in the air and the ball. And after realizing that she has missed, nothing really odd about the ball. I'm going to say that it wasn't that unusual, because it's specifically on point. She modifies her hand's form or her finger placement from simply having, to block the ball with the open hand. Before delving into the experts, let's establish the scene for their analyses, who may not be aware of all the information. The incident happened during recently the Indiana Fever played, and Caitlin Clark of the Connecticut Sun, the up-and-coming star who has been making headlines since the first draft, was managing the ball overall when DiJonai Carrington reached out to her. Face, in particular her eye. Clark dropped down instantly, obviously in pain, and need medical care, before going back to the game with a deficit directly into the eye of Caitlin, which is, those plastic nails were extremely risky, as evidenced by D's gaze was directed toward her. Something I did that she will deny, unaware that I had struck her with something that she says, I'm going to see, but you can observe for yourself that the occurrence went viral right away, with admirers on both parties providing their interpretation. Some said it was obviously deliberate. Others, however, supported Carrington by stating it was merely a component of the physical environment of the Women's National Basketball Association. Examined the play, but made no criticisms. Extra sanctions that simply served to additional disagreement. Let's begin with the real-time incident itself. Occurs so swiftly that it's simple to forget the specifics, but when we slow things down, certain unsettling trends show themselves. An expert highlights a crucial aspect that a lot of individuals didn't attend the ball had already departed from Clark's grasp when, oh no, Carrington touched her face. I smacked her with something we'll see. But you can see for yourself, she adds. I'm telling you that's not that. Odd since, well, you have your hand open in a split to block the ball. The ball has already passed the second. And she then makes the gesture, I want, with her hand. Ensure that you see it in order to. Even in the video's quality, you can observe that the acrylic is clearly visible. Nails completely, and she follows her hand straight into her face, as if it's. As she asserts, she may say that she was about to stop the ball, but why? Are you going to put all of your fingers into this position? And this is important since later, Carrington said she was attempting to use the ball for a play, but as an expert in body language discusses, if the ball is already gone, what was it? She is attempting to avoid this moment. Inconsistency is the first warning sign in. According to Carrington, it's one thing to unintentionally come into contact during an authentic basketball game, but it's something completely different when the play has moved on already. But what's even more telling is the Carrington hand's position during. You can view the expert notes and contact information, so the acrylic is easily visible. She didn't use her nails to swipe them. A palm that is open as you would when attempting to deflect a basketball with her fingertips instead of were placed so that they seem to specifically created to establish communication. With Clark's acrylic nails on her face, possibly doing more harm than good. Concerning your own innate instincts while basketball is being played when you attempt to block. Do you extend your arm to deflect a ball, or nails pointing forward on your fingers, or do you use the side of your hand or an open palm? Another is the unusual hand position. Important piece of proof that implies that this wasn't your typical basketball action. The specialist explains this spot that you can block with your open hand the ball, but instantly the ball has passed, at which point she turns. I want to ensure that she puts her hand inside. This intentional adjustment is evident of the hand following the ball's passage is especially damning. It implies a deliberate choice to get in touch with Clark's face instead of an unintentional carry out. What Carrington would subsequently assert an additional physical feature. The experts highlighted contact is the way Carrington's hand moved downward. He asks why you would receive all of your put your fingers in this place and prod straight down to her face, a natural.
That in all cases, DiJonai misses the ball. You see that she misses the ball and there's her hand in the air. And once she has realized she has missed the ball, something not that strange happened. I'm gonna say not that strange because it's very on point particular. She changes the shape of her hand or the position of her fingers from just having the hand open, to block the ball, to
the defensive movement might be horizontal or upward to obstruct a ball's trajectory rather than a hitting motion downhill in the direction of an adversary's face, but possibly the most. Analyzing evidence yields revealing information. Carrington's interview after the game. Reactions. This is where the analysis of a language specialist becomes especially intriguing as he breaks down her vocal rhythms and facial expressions, and linguistic decisions to determine possible dishonesty. When a reporter questioned Carrington over the event, an expert observes her initial neutral expression, but the instant the reporter mentions the time you hit Caitlin, Carrington's face changed drastically. Alterations in accordance with the specialist she shows what seems to be the appearance of delight in a delicate grin and facial expression that looks completely unsuitable for someone who has unintentionally hurt. Another player is described by the expert. She will either look away from her face or have this face, close her eyes, and it's a. He asks with an expression I could describe as delighted. Why someone would create such a expression if they had unintentionally. Most folks poke someone in the eye. Might voice worries about embarrassment or regret, not what seems to be contentment. He takes care to observe that. He examined if this could be a component of the typical facial expressions of Carrington by contrasting it with her expressionless face. During the interview, I would like to Do not assume anything about her. Claims, but I made sure to demonstrate the neutral face initially and then she. Alterations, and does that encounter this? A systematic approach enhances credibility. He's not picking and choosing in his analysis. Phrases, but contrasting them with further solidified baseline behavior. Carrington's verbal response is telling. When questioned directly about the incident, I don't even know why I would, she says. Plan to strike someone in the eye, and specialist in body language quickly recognizes. Carrington doesn't have something important. Instead, use Caitlin Clark's name. She calls everyone a linguistic kind of distance that stays away from addressing the particular circumstance or person concerned, according to the expert. The inquiry focuses on. She avoids addressing Caitlin. Caitlin, not even by her name. She claims that the pronoun is striking her in the face. In general, somebody like this is. Language choice frequently suggests an effort to avoid or lessen a certain action which is subtle but revealing information that conveys uneasiness by openly admitting what occurred with Clark in particular. Psychologists and specialists in interrogation long observed that this kind of linguistic distancing frequently occurs when someone is attempting to make psychological disassociation from a behavior. They are aware that their generalization with anyone, not just when Clark Carrington is addressed, a buffer between herself and the particular. The aforementioned incident is possibly the most. The interview's incriminating moment occurs when, according to Carrington, I was unaware that I struck. In fact, the specialist recognized this as an obvious fabrication based on the visual proof of Carrington's ignorance. She struck Clark, who instantly dropped to the ground, catching her sight, and the game paused for a moment as Clark got medical care. Players centered on the assertion of ignorance just isn't consistent with the reality of what transpired in the courtroom. The specialist highlights this point emphatically, which is a flagrant deception, as if she's attempting to give the impression that I didn't understand this, and I am aware that many people might be upset with me for saying, yet she's lying. She's completely is aware that she struck her while denial. The specialist notes that Carrington's eyebrows go up in what he describes himself as somewhat arrogant display of a little conceit. This
Down straight into Caitlin's eye, which is, well, with those acrylic nails, was really dangerous. And you can see, by the way, that DiJonai was looking in her direction, something that she's going to deny. I did not know I hit her, something that we're going to see, as she says, but you can see for yourself that
given her nonverbal clues, she's not being. She is completely honest when she says that it's the interview's sole instance where, in this, she lifts her eyebrows. Certain manner that distinguishes it as a tell Carrington something important, then tries to clarify by stating that I was attempting to use the ball in a play and I suppose I went ahead and struck her. However, the specialist highlights this statement's inconsistency compared to the footage proof whether she was carrying out a play for the ball. Why would she place her fingers in like a real basketball's claws? An open would be a defensive move. Acrylic is extended from the palm, not the fingers. The expert's nails looking forward explains in any situation when she claims to follow through as if you're attempting to stop the ball, but it seems to have passed. It's already gone, and your hand will be in the same position, stance, and whether you intend to strike. Caitlin, since you might follow through, you'll strike with your hand or something similar. So why include your? My query is, do you have fingers in this shape? Carrington advertisements clearly don't. Deliberate, which isn't even comparable to the kind of player in which I am an expert, observes that during this sentence, she makes a rapid mouth movement, which he takes to be another indication that she uses her mouth in this way, as if she would not harm a fly, as she is attempting to reject the incident once more, he contrasted. This is how someone who is sincere, after learning sportsmanship, would respond. They had unintentionally hurt someone else. Player, if you discover that you might as well strike Caitlyn in the eye. Express regret that it wasn't deliberate, but at least you would have a different mindset. Perhaps let's, for a brief while, pretend that she actually failed to observe that she was struck Caitlyn, and when she learns, anyone with even a small amount of sportsmanship would respond differently rather than in. This arrogant person is far less likely to. Her expression of delight when asked if she and Marina Mabra, a teammate, had chuckled, discussing the event later on in the game, as it seemed that portion of the film showed Carrington gives the expert's identification in response as a disdainful statement stating, "I simply informed you that I didn't even know I smacked her to stop me from laughing. I was unaware that the expert notes had occurred." This results in a complicated explanation. Given the circumstances, that is illogical. The obvious proof that it's so contradictory to what she claims. I am unable to chuckle at something I've previously stated. Didn't realize anything had happened for a little. Complicated what she's saying, but we are aware that. He concludes that he knew she had struck Caitlyn. His analysis by making it clear as, I intentionally don't know a lot of. You can object to what I'm saying. However, I'll tell you that's when, frame by frame, you can observe that there is absolutely no justification for her to be. She shaped her fingers in that way, and much less making that downward motion. Why this analysis is so strong is that it doesn't only highlight one part of the event, it looks at the Carrington's physical interaction itself, her vocal reactions and facial expressions, as well as the logical contradictions between her assertions and the video proof. When combined, it presents a concerning image that implies this wasn't just a regrettable mishap during competitive play. This incident also does not live in a vacuum. There have been persistent hostility between some players, as well as Caitlyn Clark, who joined the league as the draft picks have implied that there is animosity regarding the notice she's gotten, while others highlight the inherent competitiveness of Clark's professional sports background, encountered particularly strong physical protection in her 2011 season, marked by a number of occurrences that have fans scratching their heads and
I hit her, something that we're going to see. And she says, but you can see for yourself that I say that it's not that strange because, okay, you have your hand open to block the ball, but in a split second, the ball has already gone past, and then she turns her hand into, I want to make sure that you see it. And even in the quality of the video, you can see that you can clearly see the acrylic nails all together, and she goes with her hand directly to her face. It's like she could claim that she was going to block the ball, but then why would you get all your fingers in this position? And
only a few weeks before to this tragedy, analysts Chine Carter, a Chicago Sky player, provided what many regarded as an too harsh of a shoulder check for Clark, away from the sphere, which additionally produced. There was also a great deal of dispute. The infamous incident in which Angel Reese, Clark's college rival, is currently participating in. It seemed as though the Chicago Sky was mocking Clark when playing a competitive game. In a professional setting, intensity is typical. The trend of events in sports. Concerning Clark, many have questioned if there's more going on than the normal rookie hazing. Some pundits have cited the extensive media interest and attendance that broke records. Clark has contributed to the WNBA as a possible cause of animosity between the shirt of one of the older players, Clark, sold, released after few hours, and when the Indiana Fever are playing, witnessed big rises in attendance and TV ratings. All of a sudden, highlighting a new player could generate intricate dynamics inside the league the WNBA decided against penalizing. Carrington went on to discuss the incident, which has just increased the amount of discussion many supporters and commentators have said. Worries regarding player security and this creates a precedent for similar measures are not taken care of. Could it possibly inspire more hostile conduct toward elite athletes? The way the league handled the matter has drawn criticism from some who think that safeguarding elite athletes ought to be a priority, particularly given the WNBA experiences unparalleled expansion in popularity. Others have defended the league's ruling, claiming basketball is a sport that requires physical activity. Overly strict rules regarding physical play could diminish the competitiveness of the game's most intriguing aspect is the degree of division in the response. A few commentators and content producers hastily defended Carrington, asserting that it was obviously unintentional or even implying that Clark went too far, but as this analysis of body language demonstrates, the evidence presents an alternative narrative when investigated thoroughly. The incident has also generated more extensive discussions regarding sportsmanship, responsibility, and the list of well-known rookies in. Some have brought attention to professional sports similarities with the way male rookies are handled in the NBA, raising the question of whether others are subjected to a double standard. Have emphasized that physical activity and greetings, the league moments are included of both sexes in professional sports. In general, Clark has accepted taking the high road while dealing with these events during post-match interviews, concentrating on raising her game and assisting her team in winning instead of focusing on contentious situations. Her professionalism has won her more admiration from numerous fans and analysts who value her attention to the game itself as opposed to formal court drama. However, the question still stands. Specific instance involving Carrington and deliberate action intended to terrify. It caused harm to Clark, or was it actually an regrettable mishap that has been blown, exaggerated by media and supporters? According to the thorough investigation supplied by the specialist in body language, there are undoubtedly good reasons to challenge Carrington's justification. The timing of the touch following the balls left the odd hand in Clark's hands. Posture with fingers outstretched instead of, rather than an instinctive defensive position, the moving downward in the direction of Clark's face, the improper facial expressions while language distancing in the interview, and the rational contradictions in her explanation all help to create a disturbing image, but we can never know with complete confidence what was thought of by someone at a particular moment when the majority of the evidence in this instance poses important queries regarding the type of interaction when several elements of a person's speech and nonverbal cues indicate deceit. It grows more challenging to provide them with the advantages of the uncertainty. As game enthusiasts, we ought to demand and expect better basketball, intrinsically physical and incidental. Although touch is unavoidable, there is a distinct distinction between competitive play and activities that can possibly result in. Players with major injuries have a obligation to compete honorably and consideration for the security of their opponent, regardless of one's own sentiments or rivalries. What do you believe this to be? As Carrington asserts, it was actually an accident. Or does the data suggest something more thoughtful? Slow motion video, the facial expressions, and the hand posture throughout the conversation and the language. Each option offers hints as you enter. When combined, it's difficult to ignore the potentiality that this was a deliberate act, as though the evidence speaks for itself. BYF frame analysis shows the true. Don't miss what happened on court that day. Our forthcoming analysis of comparable WNBA-wide incidents that hit subscribe now to become a member of our actual basketball supporters who seek the truth and accountability. Please share your opinions in the space provided below. Was this intentional or unintentional?